What's going on, guys? This is Yacineygo, and today we're going to be going over the best budget decks that you can play this format. So again, post Banlist as well as Doom of Dimensions. There's like 30 or 40 decks out there. Not all of them are equal in terms of like power level, because again, we're looking at the cheapest ways to build certain decks. So sometimes like the expensive engines are not going to be taken into consideration, or sometimes the one expensive card in the deck, we're not going to be playing it. So it's not, you know, sometimes like there's a really good deck. Technically, if you have the money for it, it's going to be like at the very top. But in this video, it's not necessarily going to be the case, because we're going to be going according to like how expensive those decks are. So the better a deck is while being cheap, the higher it'll be ranked. And obviously decks that are complete dog shit and also just a waste of money are going to be at the very bottom. But yeah, before we go any further, as always, you know the drill. Smash the like and subscribe button. Really motivates me a lot to keep making videos like these. And let's get right into it. Starting off really strong with Moonlight, which I already think is one of the best investments that you can make. Moonlight Gold Leo is worth like $10, and that's the only Moonlight monster that has like value. Apart from that, everything is cheap. But then Heavy Polymerization is worth a decent amount of money. So if you want to play only one and then play Thrust, I think Thrust is pretty cheap because it's been reprinted a few times. You can definitely do that. There's like actual cheap ways of building Lunite, and if you don't want to play Dominus Impulse, you are not forced to do that. So that's one cool thing about the deck. You can play all engine and you can get away with it. There's honestly infinite ways of playing budget Lunite, and even if you want to play like expensive Lunite, it's not even that expensive. So I think for like the value, like the value that you're getting from this deck is one of the best in the entire game by far, and it dodged every single ban list. It's such a good investment for sure, and it's such a niche deck that it's not really on like Konami's ban list radar. Thunder Dragon is a waste of paper for sure. Radiant Typhoon is actually a decent deck for regionals if you want to have, you know, a chance at actually doing well without, you know, wasting too much money. It shouldn't be an expensive deck at all. Like, all the cards are worth less than $10, I think. And there's definitely some ways to play the deck and make it a little better. You can play like Radiant Typhoon Runic, or pure Radiant Typhoon, or like with Goblin Bike or something. I have no idea. Or like abuse Performapal Sky, or like Rainbow Magician, 5 Rainbow, and then just keep MSTing your opponent's back row so that your opponent cannot use monster effects every single time. Because obviously this is the MST deck, so if anyone can do it, it should be this deck. So I think there's like definitely some cool ways of making it work. But I don't know. It really obviously does depend on the how you build it and how tight your budget is. But either way, this deck should not be too expensive, but it also shouldn't be too good, so I can't really rank it here, but it's still fine. Flunderies, it's not really a fun deck, so I don't really even know why it's here, but it's still a deck I can play Shifter and still kind of cheese some wins. But I think the engine is actually just overall really weak, so I kind of want to downgrade it to Tree Waste. And actually, as a matter of fact, screw you guys. Just to piss all the Flunderies fans out there, I'm gonna keep this deck here because I hate this deck with the bottom of my heart. So there you go. Even though that's not really what I think technically it should belong here. Anyways, Sword Soul, it's a fun locals deck. Nothing more than that. That's pretty much it. This deck has been like overall like it's like balanced decent ever since it kind of existed. It can still Protoss the opponent, but that doesn't make it like a great deck, just because like the engine itself is like a little shaky. And it does lose to like Nibiru. You can't really make Baron anymore. Purely, maybe like we're gonna keep it at the very top of like fun locals deck. But you can still kind of do decent at it with a regional. It's just that it's a new deck, so I don't know. DDD is anywhere between cheap and solid and like very top of decent for regionals. But I think this is actually one of the better decks that you can play. But if you don't have money for Dominus Impulse, then this deck definitely downgrades all the way down here. So I think if for like the sake of making this a real budget video and not like a best decks video overall, this should actually remain here. True Draco is it's really just a fun deck for locals. That's it. That's all. Masterpiece is it can be outed by literally everyone nowadays. This is no longer 2018, unfortunately. Anyways, Blue Eyes. This is not too bad if you don't have much money. This is still a deck that performs really well. But Dominus Purge is worth like some money. It got reprinted in the Mega Tins, but I don't know how much that'll help you. I think even like after the reprints, those cards are usually still kind of expensive. But at least Dominus Purge is worth less than Impulse from what I recall. Maybe it changed because of Yummy, but yeah, it's an okay deck, honestly. It's way too good to be down here, and I don't think it's good enough to be like up here. So maybe here would be a good position for Blue Eyes. Mermail, I know for a fact, is actually not too expensive. Like, even the actual real deck lists that are topping YCSs are worth like $200, which is kind of over budget for some people, but Then again, like, you can also afford to play without, like, Impulse and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden it's, like, way cheaper, and you can definitely build your way up with Mermail. That's what I like with this deck. You can play, like, the cheaper non-engine cards, and your engine itself is so cheap that you're completely fine. So I think this is a good pick for sure, and it's also, like, a good long-term investment. Like, you know, Konami already murdered this deck on the ban list by banning Abyss Dweller and by banning Bahamut Shark, so they're not going to touch it again. I think even the Water Bearer statue is probably here to stay, unless, like, a new water deck comes out, or this deck randomly becomes the new, like, the best deck, which I don't really think is going to happen. So I think Mermail is really under the radar, and it's a good time to play Mermail, honestly. I think it's other than, like, Herald of the Arclight, of course, huh? Of course, unfortunately. But apart from Herald of the Arclight, this deck is pretty nice. The Chimera deck is also a very good long-term investment. I don't really think it's on the same level as, like, Lunite, just because this deck is unfair with its engine. Like, it makes Liger Dancer, which is Exodia. This deck, I mean, it still needs, like, a few things to go through, like, for example, you not getting hit by an Ash. If you get Ash on, like, Gazelle, and then you like hard drew the fusion spell, then, like, your opponent basically went neg1. But apart from that, it feels like sometimes you lose to one hand shop, and sometimes it feels like 3 hand shops are not enough. Like, this deck is really sporadic in its nature, but I think it's still a very good deck, even though it's been around for like 2-3 years or something. And I hope maybe not 3 years, but it's been around for quite a while, and it never really did, like, super well. It's a little disappointing, but then again, I still think it's decent. And also, this deck can play the Fiendsmith engine without Moon of the Close Sky because of the level, like, 7 or 8 whatever fusion monster that is like a light fiend. That's actually kind of cool. So I think this is a deck that is very underexplored, and if you're good with the deck, you can definitely perform really well. I think this deck is way too good to be down here. Budget Yummy is probably here. I don't even think this is a good long-term investment, interestingly enough, because it doesn't take much for Konami to really destroy this deck. Like, Herald of the Arclight banned, and then all of a sudden, like, Regeki destroys, like, your whole existence, and it doesn't feel the best. So I think, like, without Marshmallow, for example, if it's, like, over your budget, this deck is not really worth playing. But if you want to play, like, Budget Yummy, you can still kind of make it work. Like, no Dominus Purge, no Marshmallow Yummy. It kind of sucks a little. It's a little unfortunate, but there's still ways to make it work. Like, you can play Board Breaker Yummy. Board Breakers are usually cheaper than hand shops. They get reprinted all the time, and not everybody plays Board Breakers, but everybody does play hand shops, especially, like, you know, like, when Fua was super expensive, that card was like $100, everybody needed 3, and then Perilia became, like, the new Fua, even though, like, it came out before Fua. It was more expensive for, like, the longest time, actually. But yeah, whatever, you get the point. If you don't have, like, Dominus Purge or Marshmallow Yummy, this deck kind of sucks, but, I mean, it's still okay. It's still okay, but it definitely is not on the same level as, like, these other decks, I think. But it's still maybe comparable to, like, Malice. If you don't play Dominus Impulse, this deck is so much worse, but it's still not too bad as a budget deck. I think the only expensive card is March Hare. That's about it. So, it is, honestly, it's a good deck. It's a good deck. Like, after the ban list, obviously, you lost Splash Mage, Dormouse went to 1, so obviously the deck crashed a little, but it still doesn't change the fact that it's a playable deck. Some people in their tier list, they kind of overestimate the power level of Malice, like, post-ban list, but some other people underestimate it, and I think, like, it should be in the middle. Maybe, like, here should be fine. Monarch is just nothing. It's pretty much on the same level as, like, Chu Draco, in terms of, like, these decks, you can only really play them for fun, and that's about it. If anything, maybe Sword Soul can be better. Or worse, because going first is worse. Like, these two decks going first are broken, and then purely, at least, like, it used to be, like, a real top-tier deck for a long time. So, you know, it's still good if you summon Expurely Noir. Yeah, that card is, like, basically Liger Dancer 2.0, or I guess 1.0? Came out before, I guess you can say. But yeah, Monarch going second, a little shaky unless your opponent bricks. It's like your win condition usually when you're playing these kinds of decks, but at least Masterpiece and True Draco overall doesn't have to deal with Dweller anymore. That feels really good. But yeah, you can't really play hand shops in these decks, so sometimes you go second and you just want to commit Toaster Bath. RB is actually super interesting. Technically a cheap and solid deck. The thing is, TCG exclusives nowadays, they keep getting disrespected by Konami. Like, they only get 2 waves of support, and then Konami completely forgets about them. Sometimes if it's like Mitsurugi, then it doesn't matter, because the 2 waves is all you need, and sometimes even 1 wave is crazy enough, but RB, I think, is a little whack. If you're playing, like, pure RB and, like, budget RB, it might still work, but I think it does have some untapped potential, and because of that, it might be a deck that is decent for regionals, but I don't really know about the exact positioning. Maybe, like, right below DDD, or right above, it depends. Again, DDD does have Dominus Impulse that is expensive. This deck can't even play that card, I think. But yeah, Raziel on a mat, I think that deck is cheap, and it's really good, so it should be here, actually. Tri Brigade does this. I actually have to start messing around with this deck, but it does have some cool potential, and it should be ultra cheap from my understanding. And it can't even play the Dominus cards even if it wanted to. It plays so many conflicting attributes like Earth, Fire, Dark, whatever. Yeah, it definitely doesn't work. Math Mech is unplayable. Yeah, unfortunately. One Circular, no Splash Mage. Like, are you kidding me, Konami? And also Zero Link Decoder. Sorry, I forgot about that small little detail. Bro, they completely murdered this deck. Like, even if Circular comes back to 3, it still sucks. Unchained is not bad. It definitely is, like, up here, I think. It's a good deck. Exorcister, interestingly enough, I think is a very good long-term investment. Right now, it's not the best, but when we're going to be getting the new Spirit Monster, it's definitely going to help the deck out. And also, it gets, like, sometimes indirect support, like 7 Tachyon to surge the Exorcister Martha. The issue is, like, everything relies on Martha. It's kind of like Habakiri and Tasaji. If you get ashed on Martha, you're not doing much, usually. So that's, like, my drawback with this, my issue with this deck. And also, going second, you're not doing shit. It's like your engine is honestly garbage. So that's the problem, but when you're popping off with this deck, it's not too bad. But you can also go first, get hit by a Murakumo, destroy everything, and then cry. So yeah, like cards like Regeki, they actually wipe the floor with your deck. Bearer Statue Stun, it's a fun, quote-unquote deck. And by fun, I mean not fun, but it's actually better than Flunderies, I think. You have a higher likelihood of winning when you go first with a deck like this than with Flunderies. Because Flunderies, like, you actually do lose to your opponent's non-engine. With Fossil Dyna Turbo, like Bearer Statue Stun, your opponent can have like four hand traps and 1 card cowboy. It does nothing at all. So that's really, if anything, like your opponent loses because of hand traps. Unless it's like Imperm. That's pretty much it. Dinosaur, it's actually a good locals deck. Jirak and stuff like that. It's not too bad, honestly. Despia, oh, this deck is nice. If anything, it might be one of the best investments, because if Branded Fusion went to 2 in this ban list, there might be a world in which it goes to 3 on the next one. And this deck has been good for so long. It's been good for several years, so I think it has like one of the best like long-term potential out of any, like, you know, kind of like legacy-ish decks out there. It's a really, really good one. I do believe in like the long-term life of Despia. Fire King, yeah, it's a decent one. Like, it can play the new Dominus card, Dominus Spiral, and it's fine. It can also the issue with is without Dominus Impulse, like the deck gets worse. So. Like, it's a budget deck that gets so much better when you're playing expensive cards, unfortunately. Whereas, like, some of these other decks, like, even without Impulse, they're still good. This deck, without hand traps, it is not good. And it can't play board breakers because the engine is way, way, way too weak. So you do have to play hand traps to nullify your opponent's engine. Buster Blader, Blue Eyes. Yeah, it's a locals deck. That's about it. Mimigul or Mimigul Yummy. It's actually decent for regionals. I do believe in it. It should probably be at the very top, I think. But it shouldn't be in, like, cheap and solid, I think. It feels like it's worse than Fire King, overall. And it's very gimmicky, and going second, it feels a little shitty. It plays a lot of garbage cards. But the ceiling level going first is way higher than anything here, except for, like, yeah, these decks or whatever. Memento is also a deck that I think is a great long-term investment. It's also not expensive at all, like, if you just want the Memento core, but the Fiendsmith engine, I think, is also pretty cheap because it got reprinted, and you can also play, like, a minimalistic Fiendsmith engine, so without the actual expensive cards. But either way, like, Mega Pack 25 should have reprinted all the cards that you needed, I think. I'm not sure, but yeah, this deck should be easier to get than ever, and it's a really good deck, honestly. Nothing else to say here. Hero overall, good investment long term, but right now it's not the best. I'm probably gonna place it below Radiant Typhoon, but I think when we're gonna be getting the new Masked Hero support, it's gonna be pretty nice. Orchest is pretty much like up here. It's not too bad, and it's not expensive either. Like, every single Orchest card I think is worth like literally nothing, except for like the new Link 1 that is worth like $8 or something, and the Link 4 I forgot, but whatever, they're just 1-ups anyways. So this deck plays a lot of 1-ups, and again, like, it can play Dominus Impulse, which is expensive, but there's other ways to build it. Like, you can play Q9 Orchest, and it actually unironically makes the deck cheaper, and you don't even have to play Izuna if you don't want to. And even then, I think even Izuna got reprinted. It is like not as expensive as it used to be. Sky Striker, if you want to play like budget Sky Striker, it's not the best, but I think like as a deck, it should probably be here. But as a budget deck, there are a couple of cards that are worth quite a lot of money. Because this deck actually is seeing a lot of hype. So Sky Striker A0, I think, is worth like $20 or something. And then Engage is like 10 or something. I forgot, like, because there's a lot of different rarities. Like, a lot of like the old Sky Striker cards, they got reprinted like 67,000 times. It's actually ridiculous, but It's a good deck, and it's not super expensive. Even if you want to build like the expensive version of Sky Striker, it's not too much. It's also like around $200, just like Mermail and stuff, and Lunalight. But it's like not as good, I think, if you want to build it budget, because then you have to play a lot of shit cards instead of like your good cards, and it doesn't feel the best. And also, if you're playing hand shops, then some hand shops might be expensive, but then again, you're not playing Impulse, and you can get away without playing Pearlia, which is like the more expensive one. Galaxy Tachyon, that's fine for regionals, maybe like here, yeah, below Radiant Typhoon, because it's not a new deck, so it doesn't have the element of surprise. Evil Twin, this deck I think is worth nothing, huh? Yeah, all the Evil Twin cards are worth nothing at all, and it doesn't play the Dominus cards either, so it's not like you're missing out. Fiendsmith Engine should be cheap, and you can play a very minimalistic one anyways if you don't want to spend money on Tract. Yeah, this is a good deck, for sure. And also, Lacrima getting unbanned is great news for this deck. You can go Lacrima, revive back the Link 4 Trouble Sunny. This is insane. Like, couldn't do that before, so that feels really, really good. White Forest is... as a budget deck, I think it's still... because of the Megatins, it got, like, so much better. Because, like, the LZ and stuff like that, I think the price went down like crazy. And not a lot of people are even playing the deck. So I think, if anything, it might be one of the better, like, budget decks that you can play. It's funny to say budget, because this deck was so expensive before. Like, LZ was, like, $30 or whatever, so if you wanted to build a deck, it was, like, several hundreds. Now, it's virtually nothing. LZ, I think, is, like, $3. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, this is a very good budget deck, for sure. Eldritch, no. Honestly, trap decks are not really worth playing at YCSs, because you're gonna grind and you're gonna have those double losses. So that's how I feel about, like, all the trap decks. And maybe they should still be upgraded here, because they're actually good. And if you're fast with them, then you can still do well. But if you're slow and sloppy, then they suck. So they should probably still be here. Just because as, like, actual decks, they're good. And I think Labyrinth, if anything, is actually better than most of these decks, not gonna lie. Yeah, this deck, you can also play it as, like, a semi-combo deck. Like, an actual fast deck with furnitures and stuff. It really does depend. So if you don't want to grind too much and get into, like, those 50-minute... matches where you have to win in time because you can't win in time anymore, maybe this is better than Eldritch, I'm not sure. Tier Elements, this is fine. It's an okay deck. Maybe it's like close to Unchained. Even like somewhat similar in like the replaced, not really. Crystron, a little biased, but I actually think this deck is very cheap and very, very good. Even if you want to play like pure Crystron or like a cheaper version of Crystron, but K9 Crystron is already not expensive at all. And it's extremely good. So I think it's probably up here. Check out my Crystron and Lunite spreadsheets. There you go. Yeah, it's actually a coincidence, but I genuinely do believe that they are incredible value for how expensive they are. They're very cheap and very powerful. Vanquish Soul is dog shit. I mean, and no, it's not dog shit. One Raisin and one Sticker Soul feels pretty terrible, and I think it's not a great deck. I still think it's better than all those decks here. If anything, it's better than like most of these decks still. Maybe it should still be, I don't know, it's whatever. It doesn't matter. It's worse than Malice. It's worse than... Is it worse than Blue Eyes? I'm not sure. But the deck is super inconsistent, so don't even try. But it used to be ultra expensive, and now it's worth like way less because nobody's really trying to play Vanquish Soul anymore. But if you want to build like budget Vanquish Soul, I don't even think this deck is worth playing overall. So, you know what? I see, screw you guys. I'm gonna downgrade it to Fun Locals deck. You can tell I don't really like this deck all too much. Even though I played it once, never again. Doom Z. Yeah, this is another Fun Locals deck. It's not the best for regionals and stuff like that. And it's not... No, actually, no, that's a lie. It has a very good long-term potential just because of Media's the Innocent or Media's the Pure. That card, we're gonna have like way more archetypes surrounding it with like indirect support. So I think this deck has like a promising and bright future. But right now, it's not really good. It's not like these other decks that are at least way more playable at the current moment. Like, Doom Z right now is not the best. K9, like, Pure, whatever. Anything that isn't K9 Crystron, K9 Vanquish Soul, K9 Orchist, K9 Ray Raptor, potentially. Not bad at all. Really not bad. And it's not expensive. Like, Izuna and Noroi might be the only expensive cards. That's it. Apart from that, it's worth literally nothing. So, I think, yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good for sure. Maybe, like, somewhere here. I don't know. And then Sprite, I don't know if there's any, like, good... for higher support and Burst Protocol, that could be cool. That could make it, like, a better long-term investment. Maybe gonna have to, like, put it here. Gotta put some respect on Sprite, not gonna lie. And then Tenpai Dragon. The OCG actually semi-limited Sangan Summoning. For some reason, I don't know why, nobody was playing the deck. It went from 3 to 2. It's not even like 1 to 2. So that was like very confusing. But I don't think the TCG is gonna hurt the deck while nobody's playing it. If anything, it might get like some unlimitations and make it better. And that kind of wants me to believe a little more in it. Maybe place it here, maybe below Blue Eyes. I'm not sure. The exact positioning doesn't matter too much. But I really do believe that Lunite, Crystron, Memento, and Despia, these decks are incredibly good for how cheap they are. And then also everything in this row, you know, those decks are also very good decks. And then the other decks, either they're like not the best, or like they're a little more expensive, or they get like way worse if you don't have the expensive cards. Like for example, DDD without Dominus Impulse, I think this deck suffers more because I don't really think this deck's trying to play board breakers. Whereas like with Mermail, I don't think like Impulse affects you like that hard. Like you can just play more gas and you should be fine, because I think Mermail going second is much better than DDD going second, so it has to rely less on these kinds of cards. Yeah, overall, that's how I feel about like this tier list of the best budget decks. You guys let me know how you feel about it in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know if you had only $50 to build a deck, which one would it be and why? And I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.